A majority of the board is present, therefore a quorum is present, and the meeting is qualified to consider the agenda items. Mr. Lantos, please step to the podium and let the audience know about our interpretation services.
I'm Mr. Lantos. Excuse me, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Si
you.
alguien necesita servicios de interpretación, por favor me lo hacen saber allí. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight's flag salute will be presented by the Edison Preparatory School, JROTC, under the direction of First Sergeant Raymond Ships. Please stand as we prepare for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the posting of colors.
Would you please join us in the pledge? Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Ms. Keller, would you please introduce the cadets conducting tonight's flag salute?
It would be my honor. Leading our pledge this evening, we have Lieutenant Colonel Fidel Barraza, Ethan Stewart, Sonata Jones, Jesse Moat, and Ian Wamigo. Thank you all very much. A job very well done.
Thank you all for being here. Yes, excellent job. I want to remind everyone that wishes to address the board to sign in with our board clerk on my right, Ms. Cindy Hutchings. As a reminder, there is a 5-minute limit for remarks, and once we approve the consent agenda, we will not accept any more speakers. So if you do plan on addressing the board on an appropriate item this evening, please sign up with Ms. Hutchings. Before I consider a motion to adopt the agenda, Dr. Gist, are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
We do have a change tonight, Madam President and board members. On item G6, it's recommending the extension of our city year agreement, and we want to correct the cost. There's a cost not to exceed, and it's currently $226,812, and or it should be cost to be $226,812. What's listed on the agenda is $216,812. So I wanted to make that correction, Madam President.
Thank you. With that correction, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Percival?
Aye.
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 Aye. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We have a lot of exciting things going to happen in this meeting, as always. I know Dr. Gist has a special presentation this evening, so I will let her introduce that.
Thank you, Madam President. We do. We have so many important people here. We have teachers and school leaders and community leaders and members of our team and just so many. So thank you to all of you who are here with us in the Selman Room and also those of you joining us in other ways. We wanted to start tonight with something that's very exciting, and it's the first in a series of presentations that you're going to hear. This is regarding our May amazing high schools in Tulsa. In Tulsa Public Schools, we have many wonderful high schools. And we want to make sure that the stories about the great things that are happening in our high schools get out more broadly so people know what's there. And you have probably seen, hopefully you've seen our new secondary catalog. This is really designed to help families as they're looking at their next steps for their child's education. They have a place they can go to get information about each of our secondary schools. And it includes our middle and junior high and high school offerings here. And so what we wanted to do to further really highlight the great stories and the great work that's happening in our high schools is to focus on each board meeting, to focus on one of our schools and have the school leader come and share with us what's happening in their school and about their community, their programs that are happening, their achievements, and what their teachers and team are doing. So tonight we have our principal from Hale High School, Sheila Riley, with us, and Dr. Riley is going to tell us about all the great things happening at Hale. I was just there last week, and we were highlighting, along with Fox 23, the culinary program, and then on Saturday had the chance to see the team in action who's working there on what can we do to even do more to engage our high school students and make sure that what they're learning is relevant and connected to life after high school. So lots of exciting things, and we can't wait to hear more. Dr. Riley.
Thank you, Dr. Guest, Madam President, and esteemed board member, Ms. Ruth Ann Fate. Thank you guys so much for giving us the opportunity to highlight our schools. There are a lot of wonderful things going on, and let's get started. A little bit about Nathan Hale. We have a wide variety of diversity in our school. We have 55 staff members. We have extracurricular offerings, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, advanced placement courses, and of course our athletic programs. The Hale High School students have a lot of opportunities in our schools to do numerous amounts of things, both academically, elective-wise, and our athletic programs. As Dr. Guest said, we have an amazing culinary program inside of our school. It has a full restaurant. We open it up to the community every Wednesday, sometimes Tuesdays and sometimes Thursdays, depending on what's going on. But our students have the opportunity to gain incredible education in the world of hospitality by prepping, cooking, and serving food in a real-life setting. We also have a world-class JROTC program that I'm extremely proud of. It's headed up by Major Mike McGuffey, who's been in the education industry for 25 years. This will be his 25th graduating class. And out of that program have come numerous alumni that have gone on to do wonderful things in the military offering. And they learn skills such as teamwork, group work, thinking skills, things that are outside of the academic realm, such as how to work together to make things happen. So also we have in our Career Tech, we have a graphic design program which includes animation, and if you don't know, kids love this right now, so it's wildly popular. And we like to think that we have a student-centered environment, that we focus in on relationship building so that students have the opportunities to do what they want in life. I talked about culinary. Our culinary department does outside events such as catering. We've catered the mayor's inaugural dinner. We've catered several occurrences here at the board. We've catered for lots of outside events. We've done the fair. We've done, our kids do amazing things. We did the Partner in Education dinner, so they get experience not only in the restaurant setting but outside in real life situations that they have to serve and present the food. They competed at the state level, and last year I believe they came in second in preparation, and I want to say fourth in overall experience. And they've been highlighted on several programs. Most recently, Burger Brothers came out, but they were already, they have previously this year have been on the news on 6 at noon when they do the cooking show for Thanksgiving. The JROTC program, again, I'm not going to reiterate, but they have so many awards, I couldn't name them all. If you ever have the opportunity to go downstairs in Nathan Hill to the JROTC hallway, you cannot even count the number of awards that program has been given. And they perform at unique places such as the Oklahoma City Thunder, the mayor events, and the Board of Education meetings. So it's an amazing program. We also offer our students a unique opportunity this year. It's called Tulsa Term. Tulsa Term is it's experiential learning. So our students have a classroom that is downtown Tulsa in City Hall. It's a partnership between Holland Hall and TPS. Learning is hands-on, and it's wrapped around the city of Tulsa. So they get credits through real-life projects that they do for the community. They get to apply their knowledge in a real-world setting, and they get to come back and share that with our school. Our hope is that next year some of the students that are in this program will come back and lead other students through similar experiences. Okay, and this brings us to the redesign effort that Dr. Guest spoke about. I'll briefly run through it because it is so exciting for our school. So we know currently we do not serve the students that we have in the best capacity, and often we think about high school and the outcomes that we're wanting, and yet in 150 years, we've still done high school the same exact way. Knowing that our world has changed drastically, our students have changed drastically, and we just really want and need a better experience for our students to send them beyond high school prepared for the world that we live in today. So last year, Nathan Hale joined 4 other high schools that are in the process of looking at how we might redo high school so that students have a better experience and are more prepared for post-secondary life. Currently, I said we serve about 1,000 students. We have 7 periods a day, 50 minutes each. There's very little flexibility, and with each teacher teaching around 200 students, there's very little time for intervention and closing the gaps that some of our students come to us with. In our redesign effort, some of the things that we're looking at are more equitable options for our students, and that includes flexibility of time. We want them to be able, many of our students have commitments that are outside of education, and we want to afford them the opportunities to do both. Sometimes they have to choose one over the other. We need to offer our students the ability to work at their own pace. We say everybody learns at a different level and at a different time, but our schools are set up so that everybody learns at the same pace, and that's often not the case when they come to us. We need to have the ability to close the skill gaps that our students come. We have, I would venture to say, an English teacher with 200 students has 200 students at a different place in their English learning. We serve English language learners who they don't speak any English at all, and we serve students who speak the English language very well. If you have all of those students mixed in a class, it becomes difficult to help them succeed. We also have different socioeconomic levels, and we want to offer our students options that prepare them for a job, career, or college. So we are working on that. I can't give it all away, but it's really exciting. The plan that we have is coming into its own, so be looking for it because it's going to be groundbreaking. This is just a quote from one of our students. "The teachers and staff at Hale care about me, and they help me when I'm struggling with different things. If you need help on something, they will teach you so that you can understand it. I wouldn't want to go anywhere else but Hale." When we started the redesign effort, we did interviews with many of our students to find out what they were looking for in an educational experience. And this stood out to us as, a student that we want to make sure gets what they need so that they can leave high school and go do whatever they want to do. Our achievements, very quickly, our graduation rate, when I came on to Nathan Hale, it was in the summer. I think our graduation rate was sitting at about 47%. I remember going out on the streets and trying to find the seniors that weren't graduating. We were able to increase to, I think it was about 55% that year, because they don't count graduation rate until October 1st. Year before last, we raised it up to 66.9%, and I'm really excited. I think this year we're going to be over 70%. Our attendance, we have increased from about 72% in 2016. Last year it was 86%, and our referrals and unique suspensions fell by about 23% over the last 2 years. We're hoping that our redesign efforts will keep this momentum going so that Nathan Hale will reach 100% graduation rate. That's our website. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Riley. Hale experienced a tremendous amount of change after Project Schoolhouse, and I think what I've seen in just the 3.5 years that I've been here is in addition to, of course, the significant increases in graduation rate and changes that have been happening and continuing to build on that momentum, I've also seen the school spirit really come together. I mean, there's just really a tremendous amount of energy and excitement in the school, which bodes very well for things to come. I loved so much getting to come to the music programs that you have there and the performances and so forth. And just for those who might have been interested in Hale's Kitchen, which is the name of the restaurant, they are for the next 2 weeks on this. It'll be Wednesday and Thursday. It's always Wednesday, right? But it fluctuates sometimes. But the next 2 weeks it'll be Wednesday and Thursday. So the 6th and 7th, the 13th and 14th, and it's from 11:15 to 12:45. And it's a great way to support students, but also the food is really delicious and it's very reasonably priced. So that's our little commercial for Hale's Kitchen. Thank you, Dr. Riley, again for those highlights of the great work happening and also the acknowledgement of additional work that's coming and the reasons why that additional work is so important. And again, just as a reminder, we will be highlighting all of our high schools. This was our first of these, and we are going to continue those. And then, Madam President, if you wouldn't mind, I'd also just like to really quickly, before we move forward, we have somebody who doesn't get a lot of attention, but supports these meetings from back in the room. And Matt, would you stand up and just wave? So Matt Strauss is one of the folks who helps us. He's really the key person who helps make sure that the board meetings run smoothly, and is a new dad as of just recently. Alexander Matthew Strauss was born on January 13th. He was 9 pounds and 1 ounce when he was born. So congratulations to you and your wife, and look forward to getting to see him again. He's adorable. And that concludes our special presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Guest. Ms. Fate.
Well, one thing that Dr. Riley forgot to mention, I noticed when they were having the information about the culinary school, that on Thursday, the Burger Brothers were there. And I'm assuming that most of you do not know who the Burger Brothers are. One of them happens to be a gentleman who's been working very hard to restore the home of S.E. Hinton from The Outsiders. And he has made friends with a gentleman from Channel 23. Fox 23. And they are going around town trying to find the best burger place. And they went to Hale. So I thought that was interesting that we had someone from The Outsiders at Hale having lunch.
Absolutely, and the burgers were delicious.
Wonder where we don't know how it fared though yet, do we?
No, they don't really do anything official in terms of ranking them, but they were very complimentary, and they said, well, they weren't sure what to expect, but not only did it exceed their expectations, it was really knocked their socks off. So that was exciting.
So prior to this meeting, we had a special board meeting where we held an executive session to discuss the applicants for District 5. And at the conclusion of the executive session, we had an open session where we nominated and voted on the District 5 board member. And I'm going to let Ms. Marshall speak to that and give the congratulations.
We had a very exciting meeting, and as a result of that meeting, Dr. Brian Hosmer was our appointee to the board. Dr. Hosmer is the H.G. Bernard Chair of Western American History at the University of Tulsa. He's a 25-year educator teaching to diverse populations. Dr. Hosmer is a career educator, married to a career educator, so he brings education to this very diverse Board of Education. And when speaking to Dr. Hosmer, it doesn't take but a moment to feel his heart, because his conversation goes to equity, diversity, unity, and excellence in education, and we know that that's where the heart of this board is. So we want to welcome Dr. Hosmer, and I will turn it over to our president as we allow others to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Congratulations, Dr. Hosmer. Welcome. We will be seating you and swearing you in on February 19th. So if you want to bring all your paparazzi, that's the time. And we're excited and looking forward to working with you. For myself, I'd say it is extremely difficult to substitute our judgment for the voters, and we only do it when we have a resignation and we are required to do so by law. And in this case, we had a board member resign and we had to seek a replacement, and we had a fantastic pool of applicants. It was flattering to the district, flattering to my fellow board members and I, flattering to the people of Tulsa, that pool of applicants. It just stood out how invested our community is in education, and each of those people, and they each brought something different and important that made for a very difficult decision on our part, but I want to thank each of them. We were able to speak with them before the board meeting and thank them, and just remind everyone that there is an election that you'll be filing for in December, a short time away, that if those people want to pursue that seat, then they're welcome to run, and every single one of them had the qualifications to do this. We had to evaluate what was going to really round out our team. And I want to thank my fellow board members for their willingness to really put the hard work in to make the appointment. Mr. Percival, Ms. Keller, Ms. Marshall, Ms. Fate, and Ms. Wester, who was not able to be here tonight, all worked really hard with, again, this impossible task of trying to divine what would be best, what would voters want, and how we should go about looking at the candidates through that lens. For the reasons that Ms. Marshall stated, Dr. Hosmer came forward, and one of the things that she had said was, if one of her notes from when he spoke was equity and what he said about that. And as we hold that as a chief value of ours, we're so proud to appoint him. And I just want to take one more minute to say that service on the school board matters, because it is a critical component in all the things that determine the outcomes of our kids. It is very important, and the responsibility is great, and it requires commitment from both your head and your heart, and I'm not sure where time comes in that, but that's a big piece of it. And the fact that we had all of these applicants who did such a fabulous job in presenting themselves really spoke to the fact that the Tulsa community believes that this position is important too, and has a really big role in what we're doing. So we do get a lot of grief, but we also get a lot of thanks, and I feel like this applicant pool and the ability to work with my board members and appoint Dr. Hosmer was a big part of that thanks. So I'm just honored to have you on the board, and honored to work with my fellow board members, and honored to have such a great applicant pool. Anybody else like to make a comment this evening? Okay, thank you. Welcome. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda, and Dr. Gitz will remind you later about the information agenda. I'll just remind you that the consent agenda is something that has been through the wash a couple of times, right? We've seen it here on information in the past, and is typically a routine items that land on the consent agenda that we've worked through and asked questions about prior to this, so we vote on it as an omnibus agenda. Typically, unless anyone has any questions or wants to pull something out. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Fate?
Aye.
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 Aye. That brings us to the action agenda. We have 2 items to consider on tonight's action agenda. We have a recommendation to enter into an agreement with Salesforce.com of San Francisco, California for the purchase of 24 Heroku Dyno units to provide additional computing power to support dashboards to be made available to teachers. This is a cost of $11,568 to the district. It comes through a grant fund, and the additional computing power from these Heroku servers provided by Salesforce will allow for the newly developed dashboards to be made available to teachers. I think before I go on, I'm just going to ask Mr. Fedor to say a few things. Are these our infamous dashboards that we're so proud of and that teachers love?
We call them famous, not infamous.
Okay.
But yes, they are. And it's as we just continue to develop more, this is the continuation of the contract to maintain the servers that house those dashboards.
Any discussion or questions from board members? Okay. I'm making sure that I don't have any... Okay. Anybody to speak to this item. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve F1.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. Ms. Bate?
Aye.
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 Aye. That brings us to F2. We do have a speaker on this item, so I'll read it, entertain a motion, and then we will call for the speakers. This is a recommendation that We resolve, as recommended by the North Tulsa Task Force, the Tulsa Public Schools Board of Education will take the actions necessary to establish a single middle school complex for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students living in the McLean feeder pattern, that the middle school complex be located at the Monroe Demonstration School, 2010 East 48th Street North, and Penn Elementary School, 2138 East 48th Street North facilities, and that the complex open in August of 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
With that, I will call up our speakers on item F2, and we'll start with Jennifer Johnson.
At the timer, it feels like my exit ticket is about to start, and I don't know the answer. The fact is I don't. I feel as if, first of all, sorry, I'm a 5th grade teacher at Penn. I feel as if the decision has been made, and I'm merely speaking to the next steps. I'm an intelligent individual, so I feel that that has already happened, and we should move forward. My request would be that more communication happen directly with the Penn staff. I understand why you would not necessarily want to with the students, though I do teach 5th grade, and I'm sure they have questions, they already do, about middle school in general. We were blindsided, regardless of what communication went on. Our most involved committee team members, Ms. Rachel Erickson is here with us this evening, though chosen not to speak. She is a runner-up for Teacher of the Year. Very involved. The children flocked to her, and she was blindsided. Now, I understand, and I have seen the logic of the recommendation. I understand, and I want what's best for these children. These children going forward are in my classroom, my very classroom. I laughed with them today and said, guess what, you're stuck. And I might be here with you. You don't get to leave this room. But this is our family. Every student that steps through that door, they're my babies. I told them last year in 3rd grade, you walk in my door, you are my child. These are my family members. I have a couple rows of them. Not all of them were able to be present. They are my family. My students often ask me, how many sisters do you have? How many brothers? And I kind of have to think, as I did acquire a few step siblings, but now I could not tell you all of my sisters that I have with this family. We did an interesting exercise in our classroom recently called sentence surgery. I was privileged to get the idea from the Ron Clark Academy, which Ms. Shalice Jackson stood up for us and said, hey, I'm going to take some teachers to this. We donned gloves and hats and performed surgery. I had a 3rd grader in my room that day, and when she left for the day, she said, Ms. Johnson, thank you for the experience. And I would like to say the same to this board. Thank you for the experience. Thank you for the freedom to come here. If our color guard were still here, I would say thank you for what you represent, for the freedom to stand here. My students and I in 5th grade are currently looking at that. We are studying that. Please remember that as you come into our building or come near our building with cameras, with floor plans, as some unfortunately did come through as my students were on restroom break, when we barely heard the news, please remember these are our babies. We want what's best for them. This is our family. We are very close, and we would like to stay together as much as possible. If that is not what's best for the students, we understand that, and we respect that. But I would respectfully request that as we tell our students we want you to be involved in the decisions of your education, I would request of the board that their teachers be involved in the decisions of their education as well. We want them to be self-involved. We'd like to be involved beyond lesson plans, beyond showing up for a meeting, beyond a blindsided email. I would also like to directly thank Dr. Guest for listening to my request and not sending home that letter the very next day, for allowing us to wait a few days to give us time to process so that we would be prepared to speak to our students. So just going forward, please listen, please ask. Please ask about certain students that may need to stick together if at all possible. We know them better than anybody. Please talk to us. Our doors are open. We will meet with you anytime we have plan periods. Just please don't walk in with our floor plans. I'll measure it for you. If you don't already have it, you're welcome to come in. You can talk to my students, but please, from the front, not from the back, not from the side. I'm not Lawrence Taylor. I'm not Michael Orr. Neither are my staff, neither are my family. I'd rather not be blindsided again. I'd like to work with you. My family would like to work with you. Please allow us the opportunity. Thank you.
Miss Mary Catherine Rhodes Graves, or Groves, excuse me.
Long name, but I actually go by Cat Rhodes. I am the English language development teacher at Penn Elementary School, so I serve preschool through 5th grade. I am very disheartened and dismayed at the way the McLean Junior High solution was handled by Dr. Gist and the North Tulsa Task Force. According to Dr. Gist, she had no idea that the task force would recommend that an elementary school would be eliminated to make room for the junior high student population. She also did not know that Penn was part of the solution for the McLean Junior High solution until Tuesday, January 22, 2019. Penn faculty and staff were told in an email sent the morning of Friday, January 25th. That same day, personnel from the bonds department were in the building measuring classrooms while they were in session, while others were in the building to determine the construction changes that were needed. The Monroe principal and assistant principal also toured the building on the 25th, the morning of which we had just heard the news. What message did that send to the Penn community? Where was the respect due to the Penn students, faculty, and staff? What part of equity, character, excellence, team, and joy did that provide? Dr. Gist visited Penn teachers at their Monday, January 28th faculty meeting to explain the situation and take questions. Dr. Gist informed us that she had told the North Tulsa Task Force that she was committed to whatever solution they came up with and would wholly support and recommend it, even though she had no idea what that plan might turn out to be. She told us that she did not even conceive the elimination of Penn or any other elementary school would be a part of that plan. I find it difficult to believe that the task force would not have kept Dr. Gist informed of any possible solutions they were working on, including a summary report at some time and giving her their final short list of solutions before submitting a final choice to the Board of Education. I am also disappointed in the task force because they did not come into the Penn neighborhood to talk with parents, nor did they come to the school and compile information or ask questions of the faculty after they knew that this was going to affect Penn directly. There was no attempt to let the parents directly involved with this change voice their opinions. During our faculty meeting, Dr. Gist mentioned that all parents, grandparents, and guardians received information via the TPS website about forums being held at different locations for the McLean Junior High feeder pattern. However, there was never the mention of Penn possibly being closed as an elementary school. Also, many of our students' parents, grandparents, or guardians do not have home computers nor the internet, and also lack ready transportation at their disposal to attend meetings at other sites. Several have problems just getting to Penn for literacy nights, special nights, or parent-teacher conferences. Our demographic of students is very special. They are high-risk children who need extra attention and firm relationships to thrive. Principal Shalise Jackson has spent much time and effort on developing the faculty team at Penn over the past few years. She has done this through professional development and staff activities together to develop a close-knit community that nurture each other and help each other grow both personally and professionally. We have developed a unified approach to discipline and procedures that nurture and mature our students. Now, more than likely, our students will be dispersed throughout the remaining elementary schools that feed into the McLean Junior High feeder pattern, disrupting the growth and success we have made with Penn students. Dr. Gist assured us that her focus moving forward was for that not to happen, and she would try to move groups of students and possibly groups of teachers into other elementary schools that feed into McLean High School. However, she did not commit to Penn students, parents, nor teachers, as she committed to the North Tulsa Task Force for.
Ms. Rhodes, your time is concluded. Thank you. I know I said it, that we do have the 5-minute time limit, but we do try to stick to it with fidelity for every speaker. So the next speaker is Heather Troy.
Good evening. My name is Heather Troy, and I'm a first-year teacher here at Penn Elementary, and I can honestly say that I'm in love with teaching, with these students, with this staff, and with this school and community as a whole. And I'm going to apologize because this is probably going to be my whole. There is so much that I could say and spend hours droning on about the amazing things this school is doing. I was extremely upset and disheartened to hear that Penn was in the recommendation for the McLean feeder pattern 6th through 8th grade proposal. Though I can understand the need for change for these students, my number one fear and concern is the change that's going to happen for our students and staff at Penn Elementary. Our school is a huge community built within itself and has allowed for us to build such instrumental relationships with our students. For instance, my students' growth is not something that you're always going to see in a test score, but often moments that I get the opportunity to see in my classroom every day that you others will never get a chance to see. For instance, at the beginning of the year, I had a student who refused to stay in my classroom. He has struggled with this from every year since pre-K. And when I say struggle to stay in my classroom, I mean literally leaving my room 5 to 8 times a day, every day at the beginning of the year, who has now come to trust and love me and makes a conscious decision to stay in my room and learn. My student who hated school at the beginning of the year because they didn't want to be in my room because they were supposed to be with the other first grade teacher who was there last year and I wasn't. Who in December has now told me they love my class and being my student. Those are just the students in my classroom, not including the students through every grade level that I have gotten to know who I get to see flourishing daily because of our teachers. Oftentimes, test scores don't always show growth that we as teachers get to see every day. The growth comes from the relationships built with the adults and teachers in the building that believe in these students. The students who come in every day knowing they are loved and safe and knowing that not just their teacher, but all the teachers in this building believe in them. They know we put time and effort into them in order to succeed and are trusting us to continue to do so. We have built a community within our school that our students love and adore as much as the teachers. I feel to break up these students and send them into other schools in the district would be hard and would be damaging the trust and relationships that we have worked so hard to establish in our school. The other concern I have is the loss of staff that we have at Penn Elementary. Our relationships with our students would not be made possible without the team that we have built. Our team is one that I feel exceeds any other team I've ever seen. We not only get along tremendously and love each other, but it is portrayed throughout to our students. When our kiddos get to come in every day and see a staff that is joyous, has fun, and is excited to be at the school with them, loving to each other and the students, then become excited to be here and know they can trust the relationships that we have been building with them. I understand there is talk about moving our school and combining it in with another school if it could house our students as well as our staff. This was told us with the understanding that our students and staff would remain together. I agree that this could be beneficial to everyone involved. I still believe that this would be a change far too heavy for our students. They are still leaving a school they know where there is no guarantee that our staff is going to stay stay together because our staff includes our principals and admins, our counselors, the office staff, and all the specials teachers who also make up our team. And in turn, it would break the trusting bond that we have worked so hard to create with these kids. Penn Elementary is not just an elementary school. Sure, on the outside, that's exactly what it looks like. If you take a walk through our school, yeah, it's just a normal building with classrooms, offices, libraries, an art room, a gym, and doors and windows. To others, it may not look like anything special. What is special inside these doors is the community that is within our school. We are not just a school with teachers and students. We are a community full of houses. We are full of competitions. We are full of joy and fun. We cry and we celebrate together. We build each other up and push each other on to success. We are joy and laughter. To most, we are just another building. We're just another elementary school in the heart of Tulsa. But to those of us housed in the school, we are one heart. We are a family. Penn Elementary is not just a family, it is a home. And if you choose to close the school for the McLean feeder pattern 6th through 8th grade proposal, I feel like you're going to be tearing this family apart. And I would like to request that if you still decide to approve this recommendation, that you consider the option to move Penn as a school and staff in its entirety onto its own individual campus. Thank you.
Mr. Darrell Bright.
President, Dr. Guest, board members, you know, I've been at every meeting, just I guess public meeting, of the North Tulsa Community Educational Task Force, and I haven't seen anything about closing Penn. Maybe I'm overlooking it. Even at the last meeting, I got this copy. I can't find it. So I'm not quite sure where it came from. But when I looked at all the meetings that I've gone to, looked at the kind of feedback, good feedback they got from the community, suggestions, etc., I don't believe I've seen that. This is really befuddling. It takes you right back to Project Schoolhouse. Do you realize the kind of damage you do to kiddos that are moved around and to teachers? And to that community? I haven't seen it. If somebody has seen it and it's been out there, let me know. Because I think the committee itself, as a task force, did an excellent job of making a presentation. And great speakers. But I had not seen this. The question becomes, is deja vu, because we've been there before. When this thing first started, back in February, or actually in January, when Dr. Green sent out a note, very likened to the one that you sent out to the McLean feeder pattern. The same thing. We came to a meeting February 1st, and folks say, wait a minute, the decision has been made. And then a trust was raised out in the community, said, we don't trust you. And the meeting just went and imploded. It was an issue of quest. This is after the fact. Why do we keep doing that? We talk about people who are living in a community, who have established lives, who have teachers who have vested in these schools, and we don't talk to them? How in the world did you have this presentation made? And it's not the task force fault. January 22nd, and the public couldn't even speak to it. First time it was ever put out there. And here we are, and you're talking about having a meeting with Dr. Guest, a meeting, with the Monroe family and with the McLean junior high and 7th grade, February 11th and 12th? And you're going to vote on this after the fact? And on both the notices, it says, well, we're going to talk to you about quote-unquote potential changes. If you vote to accept this, it is the change. This should have happened months ago. These individuals that we're talking about, these mothers, fathers, teachers, principals, it is not the task force fault. It is the process that the district has, you understand what I'm saying? Has been doing this for ages, for generations. How do I know that? First-hand information right here. We can talk after the meeting. This is not to denigrate anything that was put in the proposal itself. It is the process of denigrating the input of stakeholders and people who have a vested interest in the education of their children and should have a right to do that before a decision is made. Don't you think? Don't you think? So could we table this until after the February 11th, February 12th meeting? I mean, the meetings that we have in the community? I'm not saying that look, by delaying it by 2 weeks would damage anything, I don't believe. So it's not the question of standing here and opposing this as such. It is a process of always leaving the individuals who are impacted the most on the outside. The group did a great job. They opened up the community meeting at the 7th grade center. We had input, but it was not the final product. Once it became finalized, then you have to have those meetings with those stakeholders. Before then, it wouldn't have made sense, except to gather information. Now that it's finalized, these meetings, February 12th and February 11th and 12th, should happen before you vote on this. Thank you.
Ms. Jolly Meadows. Ms. Jolly Meadows, our next speaker.
And thank you. I might want to say that the decision of the task force, we used data from Tulsa Public Schools to make our recommendations. The first data that we received from Tulsa Public Schools on the usage of facilities stated that the facility, Monroe Middle School, was adequate to house the population of students that we expected. The second set of data that we received based on the projection for the number of students that we would receive was different. So we made the recommendation based on a projection given to us by the district of the additional number of students that we would receive. In essence, I do want to thank the board for the recommendation to provide a single middle school in the McLean feeder pattern. The task force cited several benefits in its initial recommendation for improved learning experiences for students, safety, meeting students' developmental needs, consistencies for families, and lowering the transition for students, high-quality neighborhood schools, increased enrollment in the feeder pattern, and a holistic learning approach. At the January 22nd board meeting, the task force shared its commitment to working with the district to see that the desired outcomes would be carried out. The board may be reassured that the recommendation by the task force to serve as the Community Education Advisory Committee for the McLean feeder pattern is documentation of our unwavering commitment. In addition, we look forward to the recommendations and the resolutions for the remainder of the recommendations made by the task force on January 22nd. Following a review of the extremely low achievement in all of the feeder schools for the McLean Task Force, we made our recommendation based on research. Those were to reconfigure the elementary schools and include a pre-K-5 feeder pattern, to use the scientifically research-based strategies for teaching children, to offer a full curriculum and extracurricular activities, to infuse effective leadership, including principals, teachers, and the support staff needed to provide the leadership and culturally relevant education for students, to provide all wraparound services, to create a school climate that fosters parental and family involvement, and train parents how to become involved in their children's education. To achieve that, we wanted a parent resource center that would be located at the Alcott, currently 7th grade center. We asked for a moratorium on school closings and charter schools in our area while we reclaim the students that we have in our feeder pattern. The rationale is that we want to build a quality school for all children. The recommendation was also to have a school improvement program in our feeder pattern to help our students transition and transform in the McLean Feeder District.
Our next speaker is Ms. Jane Malone.
Guests, school board members, and our school board representative, Pastor Marshall, and to all in attendance, good evening. I am Jane Malone, and I'm here again to thank you for the proposed resolution. I also want to be assured that the recommendations from the North Tulsa Community Education Task Force be accepted in its entirety, helping our children to succeed. Create a 6th to 8th grade middle school to be located at the current Monroe location and to include the Penn building. One school will not split resources, and to have a community resource center to be located at the current 7th grade Alcott location, educating and addressing the needs of the whole child and family. Again, and as you know, we are better together. A word, a careless word, may kindle strife. A cruel word may wreck a life. A bitter word may hate and steal. A brutal word may smite to kill. A gracious word may smooth the way. A joyous word may light the day. A timely word may lessen stress. A loving word may heal and bless. And this is from an unknown author. We need you to accept our recommendations in their entirety because we are better together. Thank you for listening.
Richie Anderson.
Good evening. To our superintendent, board members, and to everyone present to comment on this heartfelt issue. I want to tell you a little bit about myself so you would know why I've served on the North Tulsa Task Force. I grew up in North Tulsa, product of Tulsa Public Schools. I attended Alcott and Gilcrease, lived in North Tulsa most of my life. As Mr. Bright said, there's always been some distrust amongst North Tulsa, unfortunately, and the school board. And so that's why I was so excited about this opportunity for the board and North Tulsa members to work together. And so I was actually very happy about that. No matter how we turn, there's going to be folks who are not happy with the decisions that were made. I appreciate everyone for saying what they need to say about it. I'm going to tell you a few things about myself so you can understand me and how I approach my work on this board or on the task force. I'm a parent, just like the gentleman back here, when we say congratulations. I love being a dad to 3 wonderful kids, ages 14, 16, and 18 years old. I have been married to my wife for 22 years. I have been employed on my current job for 31 years. I have also served my country in the United States Marine Corps. So I said all of that to say this: when I approach something, take a commitment to something, I don't take it lightly. I try to look at all angles of everything. I have a lot of love in my heart, and I try to approach this task force the same way. The task force worked for many months and had many meetings to present the package to the board. I see part of the major part of the recommendation listed here on the agenda today, but I do look forward to seeing all of the task force recommendations come to fruition. These recommendations are for all students to grow and thrive in Tulsa Public Schools. As Mr. Bright pointed out, we will have meetings with the community as needed and the teachers, and my heart goes out to you. I thank you for the things that I hear that you're doing at PN. I think that's a wonderful thing, and I just have to trust God that we have wonderful teachers all over the district, and that the children that may be dispersed to other schools will continue to find teachers like yourselves that would love them and teach them accordingly. So thank you.
Our last speaker this evening is Reverend Potter.
Thank you again for this opportunity and to the protocol already established. Certainly my heart is pounding with excitement, but also pounding with sadness right now. For some 30 years, I've been attending these kinds of meetings and hope that all the children in our district and our community would receive quality educations. For 30-some years, I have been disappointed because that has not happened. A select few have made it, but the rest have fallen through the cracks. I love the passion that I heard tonight of teachers and faculty that love students, that love a family that has been created. This task force was given the task of determining whether the 7th grade academy should remain in a location or go back to a main campus. But when we looked at our assignment, we said the issue is larger than that. And when I agreed to Dr. Guest that I would chair this committee, I immediately brought in my experiences and hoped for a better results this time. Now we have an opportunity to enlarge the family. Just not a few kids are receiving this tender, loving care, this education that all deserve. Not just a few are receiving that, but a whole district are receiving that. Look what we're facing. We're asking parents to help educate kids today that they themselves fell through the crack. Parents who fell through the crack to help educate kids who are now falling through the cracks. When will we come to the place where we think about all the kids, enlarge this family, bring these passionate teachers to all of our kids, not just a few, but to all of our kids? This task force, this recommendation is truly, simply, and entirely the task force recommendation. No one influenced us to this recommendation. Our passion, our desire, our hearts, our guts led us to this recommendation. And we are confident that if this board approves this recommendation, you will see quality education for all our kids in our community. The superintendent talked about amazing high schools. We can't claim McLean is an amazing high school. Not with the stats that we saw that were given us by TPS. They are not an amazing high school. An amazing high school cannot be determined by how many state championships you win, how many trophies you have. But an amazing high school, an amazing school period, is when kids come through learning how to read and write and do arithmetic, the simple education. That's what's important. Not who is where or what children are moved here or there. Project School moved our community all over the place. all over the place. We suffered much by that. But we had hoped that Project Schools would have made the difference that we were desiring. We failed. That did not happen. Cornelius Potter, Reverend Cornelius Potter, terms his 30 years of serving in committees and task force with TPS. I failed because our kids are not where they need to be. This time, I'm in hope that we make it.
Thank you. A motion. Is there discussion on item F2? No discussion for Dr. Guest.
Well, I certainly don't want to speak before the board, but just in case, I didn't know if you all had additional comments. Go ahead, board member.
Ms. Marshall.
I would certainly like to thank the efforts of the task force. I know that the task force put in many hours. They took this on as a labor of love, a labor of sacrifice. When the task force was started, I don't think myself nor the superintendent ever dreamed that they would put the hours in that they put into it. We may have thought that it would be an hour here or an hour there, but from listening to their discussions, it was 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. They gave up their holiday time, their family time, because they believed that there was a purpose and they had a vision. And I want to thank them because I believe that we're closer than ever before to coming to a resolution to the problems. We now have a solution, and I want to thank this task force for everything that you've done. I want to say to those educators that feel that you were blindsided, we recognize your hurt, we recognize your pain, and we are truly sorry for that. For whatever reason that happened, we can't say that it didn't happen because perception is reality. And as a human being, as an individual, we have to own that. We have to. We can't take that away. We can't say that it didn't happen. Somewhere a step was overlooked. And as adults in this process, we have to say that for that we are truly sorry. But we are in this process together, and we want to go forward for our children. So all that I can say as a board member in that district is that I would hope that as adults that we can lock arms, we can lock hearts together, and we can look forward for our children's sake, and that we can say we're coming together for a better day and a brighter future for our children. Let's pave the way and let us show our children how we get things done together. We have to put this behind us and let's just go forward. Please accept my apology as your board member, because maybe there was something that I could have done as a board member to have stopped your being blindsided. So please accept my apology as a board member for that district. But let's move on together and let's look at what we can do for our children.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Any other comments from board members? Dr. Guest?
Thank you so much to each of you. I just want to take a minute. I want to go back to last year for just a second because I think it's important to set some context. Many of you in this room know this, but just so that we're all on the same page. So we know that we have, that we set into this work because we needed to make sure that our 7th grade students that are part of a McLean feeder pattern are receiving an education that we weren't able to provide them in a school that that was as small as it was, as small as it is still. And so we had a recommendation. It wasn't a decision, but it was a recommendation about moving those students back to the junior high school. And when we went to the community to talk about that as a possibility, we got a lot of feedback and a lot of concern about what that would mean for those 7th grade students. And we heard a lot of ideas and a lot of wonderings about what was possible, but also a lot of sense of, as was said, that we had already made the decision, which we hadn't, but it felt that way to people. And so I think the comments that have been made here tonight about trust, what was so evident in that community exchange, that it was almost difficult to get to the problem-solving part of what we were doing because we couldn't get past the part where there wasn't confidence in the just straightforward trust about whether or not we were making choices or considering choices that were in the best interest of students. And we know why that is. We know that that is because there have been many, many years, decades of not getting done what we needed to get done as a district and ensuring that every student was receiving access to the kind of education that he and she deserve. So because of that feedback and that recognition, we made the commitment that we would keep the students at the 7th grade center for another year while we worked with the community to determine what happened next. And that is the background to the birth of the North Tulsa Task Force. Board members and I, each of the board members here, Board Member Marshall, members of the community who had been vocal during this, had many conversations about what would happen next. And that was where the task force emerged. The decision to have this be an example of what I would say is radical collaboration was because we had to get past the, not past, but we had to acknowledge the lack of trust and then do something that would make it very clear that we were in a place that was going to be different, in a place that was going to acknowledge the failures of the past, trust the community and community leaders to not only give feedback on a recommendation, which was how we approached it last year, but instead to actually make the decision. Now, to be clear, I was clear with task force members that, that commitment could only be upheld if the ultimate recommendation was good for kids and was, feasible to implement. But it is. And it is a solid recommendation. Here's what I also want people to know, that when we were talking one-on-one with task force members, asking them to be a part of this, we made it very clear that there was no possible solution, not one. And we had probably 7 or 8 ideas that we had heard from community members over a number of months. And there were probably others as well that were considered. Not one of them, not one, could have been implemented that wouldn't have involved the loss on the part of members of our team. Not one. And not one of them would have happened in a way that didn't mean temporary disruption for the longer-term implementation of a bigger vision. And so I think that's just important to acknowledge. There wasn't one that wouldn't have meant that. And that's really important. I think that I want to just say again, and I'll echo Board Member Marshall's comments to the Penn teachers and what I shared with you last week. I am truly sorry, both that you didn't have warning or information until until the board meeting, but also that it's happening either way, because whether you had known or not known, it would have been painful. It's just more painful and more shocking when you didn't have time to absorb it. We are very sorry about that, and I hope you have heard from every single person here that we are unbelievably grateful for what you do every day for our students. And we are continue to be committed to working with you to figure out the way in which we make this transition, assuming the board makes these final decisions, which will happen on the board meeting on February 19th. This resolution is indicating a direction, but the board members will vote on actual items on the 19th. We want to work with you to make sure that transitions are as smooth as possible for students and teachers, and that we hold on to the great work that you've done and the work that you do together as a team. We have a chance as a community to say that something is not going to just be a solution to a one school issue or a resource issue, but is going to be truly about a vision that leaders in our community came up with in collaboration with those who attended the community meetings and so many others they've reached out to say that something really dramatic is going to happen, something game-changing, something that is going to change the face of the quality of education for children in North Tulsa for many, many years. So there's much more to come on this. I think that's important, but there's a beautiful vision that's been presented, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with the task force members, other community leaders, parents, and of course our incredible teachers and school leaders at all the schools involved in this decision. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Gist. With that, I will call for a vote. Mr. Percival?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. That moves us to the information agenda, and Dr. Gist will present that portion of our agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. So the information agenda, I want to make sure to remind everyone, is presented for consideration. There are not actions taken on these items. We'll start with items G1 through G6. These will be presented by our Deputy Superintendent, Paula Shannon. Deputy Shannon.
Thank you. Deputy Shannon, we have Mr. Huff-Hines is going to speak to G1, G2, and G6. So at the conclusion of your presentation of these items, I'll ask Mr. Huff-Hines to come forward and speak. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gist, and thank you, President Schreiber, for that notice. Board members, good evening. Items G2, G4, G5 are routine and related to activities at schools like ROTC balls, proms, and our annual commencement ceremonies. So happy to answer questions if you have any on those items. I do want to draw your attention to item G1. Item G1 is grant funded. It allows us to enter into a contract for community-based doula programs to provide extended intensive peer-to-peer support through pregnancy, delivery, and the early postpartum period. This supplements our Strong Tomorrows program so that we are appropriately and very robustly serving our pregnant and parenting teens. So happy to answer questions on this item if you have any.
Deputy Shannon, regarding this item, it says peer-to-peer support. Can you talk about that in relationship to the doula training?
Or Devin can.
Chief Fletcher and I are tag teaming this one. We each have different details.
Yep. So ultimately the goal is to train members of the community who ultimately look like the students who are pregnant and parenting teens, so that there's a familiar relationship that's built, and that you also build a more diverse pool of doulas of color, which don't exist in our market today. And this provides students an opportunity to gain a skill, expand knowledge, and also talk to peers in a way that can actually relate to them on the level where they are.
So to clarify, it is students that are being trained as doulas?
It's students who have completed the program previously and have graduated.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kind of like maybe a better term is near peer, so similar to like city year graduates coming back to serve alongside, but closer in proximity to the students that are in high school.
Excellent. Thank you.
Next.
Other questions on this item?
Okay. Item G3 is an agreement with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation to receive a grant for outdoor education at Thoreau Demonstration Academy, so exciting opportunity there. And then finally, item G6 is an extension of our current scope of work with City Year Tulsa. This actually is quite responsive to our more robust school planning process. So we have school leadership teams that are noting some additional things that they want to do in the areas of tutoring, attendance, and in some of the Tulsa Beyond schools in which they serve some work over spring break. So this is an addition to their contract to be responsive to school needs at the specific sites that City Year is serving in. I'm happy to answer questions on that one.
No questions? Does that conclude
That
your
concludes my items.
Thank you. Mr. Huffines, if you'd like to speak to these items.
Peace, yes, peace. Greetings to our Honorable Superintendent, Dr. Gist, our Madam President, Suzanne Schreiber, and each of our Honorable Tulsa Public School Board members and honorable staff and team. We are grateful for all the teachers and citizens of this great city, Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a joy to be with you on this 4th day of February in the year of our loving Lord, Jesus Christ, 2019. Yes. It's easy to support G1 and Strong Tomorrows. I'm grateful for this Strong Tomorrow program, helping students to keep their babies healthy before and after birth, and to move forward with their lives with a bright hope for their future. Babies are blessings. Thank you to the Tulsa Public Schools School Board for helping these high school students move safely in the right direction. G2. Recommendation, enter into an agreement with Picture Perfect Mirror Photo Booth Tulsa to provide picture perfect photos at Booker T. Washington's Senior Prom on April 6, 2019. Perhaps the most valuable thing that I got out of my second year, says Booker T. Washington in his autobiography, Up from Slavery, was an understanding of the use and value of the Bible. Miss Lord, one of the teachers from Portland, Maine, taught me how to use and love the Bible, he said. May our Tulsa teachers be free to do the same as Booker T. and all of our Tulsa great schools welcome the Bible and prayer. G6, so yes to G2. G6, recommendation. Extend the agreement approved on the June 18, 2018 agenda, item E2, to expand the scope of services provided at certain district schools from the date of execution through June 30th, 2019, to support 1, increased attendance work based upon specific school-based action planning, and 2, increased tutoring support focused upon assessment, preparation, and targeted tutoring, and 3, increased parental engagement efforts to supplement parent-teacher conferences and follow-up. The rationale was excellent, and the schools served include Eugene Field, Kendall Whittier, and Sequoia Elementary Schools, Webster, Rogers, and Hale Junior High Schools, McLean 8th grade, and Webster, McLean, and Hale High Schools. Highlighting Webster High School, which was named after Daniel Webster. Daniel Webster, in his speech delivered to the Supreme Court of the United States on February 10, 1844, in favor of the religious instruction of the young, he communicated the great value and importance of prayer. He also stated at another time, "Whatever makes men good Christians makes them good citizens." Daniel Webster. Seems clear to me emphasizing prayer and Bible reading in our public schools is a great idea. And another school to benefit from this over $200,000 investment is Hale High School. Hale High School was named after Nathan Hale, who is reportedly called a diamond of a Christian. So I'm supporting 6G, and thank you, President Schreiber, for your excellent leadership.
Thank you. Dr. Guest.
Thank you. Items G7 and G8 will be presented by our Chief Information and Analytics Officer, Stephen Fedor. Mr. Fedor.
Thank you, Dr. Guest, President Schreiber, members of the board. Item G7 is to enter into a contract with Presidio Corporation of Greenbelt, Maryland, as a result of request for proposal number 19004, issued by the district to upgrade the district's wireless network infrastructure. This project will replace the aging wireless network infrastructure and support the current and future technology needs of the district. The current wireless infrastructure is about 5 years old, and if approved, E-rate will provide a discount of approximately 85% on eligible expenses up to $3.1 million. The total cost of this item is not to exceed $7 million. Given that we're really excited about this project and the fact that it is a significant cost, I want to spend just a little bit more time sharing about this. To put it in a little bit of plain language, the wireless network infrastructure, if you look up right here in the middle of the room, there's a little square spaceship type thing, and then back there in the middle of the room is a little square spaceship thing on the ceiling. Those are what we call wireless access points. There are nearly 4,000 of those across the district. This project is to replace those 4,000 roughly wireless access points, as well as some of the back-end infrastructure that is used to support our wireless devices. I'll share a little bit, and if there are any questions, especially technical ones, I'll ask Joe Jennings, our Executive Director of IT, or Charlie Diebold, our engineer who leads this effort, to do the work, or to come and answer the questions. So we upgraded our wireless infrastructure about 5 years ago, and over those 5 years we've seen a number of changes in the world of technology as well as Tulsa Public Schools. So I want to share with you just a few of the major differences that we see in technology today compared to just 5 years ago. 5 years ago, laptops were being purchased at a slower rate than desktop computers in the district. And Chromebooks were just starting to be purchased for students. For context, desktops typically use a wired infrastructure. And so you can see over here, there's a little white pole that leads to a little blue square box that you plug in. That is a wired device. 5 years ago, that was way more typical than it is today. Today, the devices that we get on our laptops, they don't actually have a port to plug in. It is default that they are wireless. So in addition to, that was a little more context with it, the desktops that use wired connections are being purchased at a much slower rate today. We currently have about 38,000 Chromebooks across the district. Once again, these are devices that only can connect to the network via wireless infrastructure. One additional change is that we have seen new devices that didn't exist at all 5 years ago that access the internet via wireless infrastructure. I'll talk about those in a minute. So we have today smart TVs, interactive display boards, and some other unique devices accessing the internet wirelessly. These include thermostats, door sensors, security cameras, perhaps most importantly, coffee makers also access the internet wirelessly, which we wouldn't have thought of 5 years ago. And newer technology that we believe will shape the way that students learn also use this technology. That includes virtual reality goggles, augmented reality devices, and more that we can't anticipate will over the next 5 years. So this infrastructure upgrade is to not only support us today, but 5 years into the future and beyond. To support this level of connectivity, we're going to upgrade the 3,694 wireless access points and 733 switches, which are boxes with a lot of wires coming out of them is the technical term for those. And they're in closets that hopefully you never have to see what's going on there. But that is what supports this wireless infrastructure for our students and teachers to get on the internet every single day. It's to the point now when we turn on our computer, it's like a light switch. We are surprised if it doesn't work, as opposed to really thankful for Charlie and the team's work, knowing that, wow, it does work. we know that technology is an essential component to providing an excellent education to every student in Tulsa Public Schools. We're very excited about this work and allowing us to be the work behind the scenes to provide an excellent education to all students and quality experience to all staff members. So with that, happy to answer any questions, or Charlie and Joe can answer some of the more technical ones.
So could a teacher turn on the coffee pot on her way to school at a stoplight, of course? Is that?
We currently don't have coffee pots connecting to the network, at least that we approve. Some innovative teachers may have that, but if they have that, yes, they could turn it on their way to school so it's ready when they get there. But perhaps in the future, as we have better network infrastructure, we will have those approved coffee pots connecting to the network.
Thank you. Other questions from board members?
Yeah, I have coffee makers.
Copy makers do connect to the network, but coffee makers as well. It's a real thing.
I don't think he said copy makers. That's a copier.
For coffee makers, I just had to, double check that thing. All right. Whatever.
All that explaining, and we all latched on to coffee makers.
I would want teachers to have that as early as they go to work. Dr. Gist, I think that brings us around to G9.
Yes. So G9 is actually a routine item related to sanctioning the booster clubs and parent-teacher associations. This is in accordance with board policy. This sanctioning actually is necessary for providing the organizations with an exemption from the statutory controls found in the Oklahoma School Code related to school activity funds. And organizations that are listed here have met the requirements necessary to support their applications. This is a routine item, but certainly Chief Delgadillo is here to answer any questions board members might have. So moving on, items G10 through G13 will be presented by our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Jorge Robles. Mr. Robles.
Thank you, Dr. Gist, President Shriver, members of the board. Items G10, G11, and G12 are routine items related to the project to do interior renovation at Rogers College High School, and they're phase 2. This is part of the 2015 bond issue. G10 is to enter into a contract with the lowest responsible bidder. G11 is to assign that contract to Crossland Construction Company Incorporated, and G12 is to approve the Amendment 13B to incorporate a specific project on the contract with Crossland Construction. The subcontractors and projects are in bidding phase right now, so the name and the amounts of the subcontractors will be presented in the consent agenda. And they're obviously contingent upon the successful sale and receipt of the 2019 aid bond funds. In item G13 is also a routine item to enter into contract with the lowest responsible bidder for roof replacement at various sites. The project is currently in the bidding phase, and you will see the contractor names and amounts in the on the consent agenda. And this is part of the 2015 bond issue as well. So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. So G14 is also a routine item. This recommends approval of our annual subscription to the Thomson Reuters Westlaw Services. This is an online subscription that allows our district's legal team to better serve our district's legal needs by providing them with current and extensive authorities and guidance pertaining to a wide array of legal questions and needs. And our general counsel, Jana Burke, is here to answer any questions if board members have them.
No questions, Dr. Gist.
Okay.
Or on any other item?
This concludes information items. Thank you.
Are there any staff reports this evening, Dr. Gist?
Not tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Any board member reports or concerns? Ms. Fate.
Yes, I didn't make my report last month since, it was last month, since we ran a little long, but I did want to bring you quickly up to date. this year is the 75th year for the Oklahoma State School Board Association, so they're celebrating. And guess what their emphasis is? Equity. And so I will pass it around so you can take a look at it. They have the seminar that's coming up that we have several people from Tulsa already participating in as part of the seminar, but it's called How Do You Eliminate Barriers to Student Success? It's through achieving equity and excellence. And I think it will be real helpful. You get actually 6 different credit hours going to that, and it is in Edmond, so I'll pass that around and I'll give it back to Ms. Hutchins, and she can take your reservations if you want to go to that. But that, I think, is going to be an exciting conference at the end of August also, where they're going to be dealing with equity.
Thank you so much. Other board member reports or concerns? I have 2 things. I was able to attend the Governor's State of the State today, and glad to report that education remains one of the #1 priorities, and there was standing ovations throughout the gallery and the floor of all the House of Representatives and the Senate and all of the statewide electeds when the governor made this commitment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of this session. There's a real sense of optimism and innovation, and I'm looking forward to a new day, starting with the raises that we got last year, and we'll see where we go this year. Unfortunately, I think Patty Ferguson Palmer has left, but she and the teachers of Oklahoma were awarded the World Change Prize by the Woody Guthrie Center this last weekend, and I think it's exciting to see in the tradition of Woody Guthrie that she was honored and the people's voices will be heard. And I'm sure that the 2 things I just mentioned, the Governor's State of the State and the voice of the teachers, will come together this legislative session, which started today again. But congratulations to all the teachers of Oklahoma for their leadership in pushing the state in something that it had not been able to achieve for several years. And I commend the Woody Guthrie Center for recognizing them in that very special way, in a very honored tradition of that award. So looking forward to celebrating that, I think, sometime this spring. We don't have any citizens' comments this evening. Dr. Gist, do you have a report this evening?
I don't have an additional report. I was actually going to refer to the State of the State address as well, Madam President, but you did that so eloquently that I'm going to let your word be the word on that.
We have no non-routine items. Any new business, Mr. Wade? I'll give the announcements. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, February 19th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. in the Cheryl Selman Room at the Education Service Center, 3027 South New Haven Avenue, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
With that, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Proschel?
Aye.
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 Aye. Meeting adjourned.